recording it as of right now. Alrighty, so we're ready to go. Did you meet everyone? Yep.
Should I put video on? You want video on or off?
I'm on.
I might as well put on. I guess I should mute myself as well.
Hello,
Yeah,
everyone.
If everyone could, videos are welcome, absolutely. But if you could mute yourself for now, that would be great. There'll be an opportunity at the end to ask some questions and whatnot. But when we get everything running, if we could ask everyone to mute, that would be fantastic. I think that looks like just about everyone has made it in so far. Possibly not. I think so. Anyway, for those of you who are here, welcome everybody to our Isle of Arran tasting event. And we hope that you are all ready to taste some fantastic whiskies and hear a bit about the distillery and the Isle itself. I'd like to introduce to you Mariella, who is the brand ambassador for Isle of Arran Distillery. She's joining us tonight, and thank you very much for you joining us tonight. And she's going to take us through a presentation on all of the whiskies that you should hopefully have in front of you by now. So Mariella, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself a little better than that and take it from there.
Cool, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. For me, it's a beautiful 8 a.m. in Glasgow where I am right now. So no whiskeys for me. I have a cup of tea, I promise. There's absolutely no whiskey in that. It's a little bit too early for me too. And I'm sorry about my voice as well. I have a cold at the moment, but I hope you can all hear me and see me okay. So let me know if there are any issues throughout the tastings. What to say? I like to keep my tastings quite informal, quite friendly. I am Italian, so I can talk for hours, I can talk for ages, move my hands a lot. You see a lot of this today as well. But I'll try to shut up every now and then so we can also drink some whiskies together. If you want to use the chat, feel free to use the chat. I'll keep an eye on it, and Anton will be as well. And yeah, let's just, have some whiskeys and have a good time. I think without further ado, we should already start, as it's 8:05 where I am. I forgot at what time you started. I don't know if it's 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. I forgot that.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Fair enough, 7 p.m. So let's just pour ourselves the first whiskey, which is the Arran 10 years old. Do you all have that with you? I see some of you are pouring it right now. That's great. I'll share a photo just so you know how it looks like, because we actually went through a bit of a rebrand. And I mean, there is a joke. We literally fully rebranded our range 2 years ago. So our bottles look very, very different from what they looked like 2019, early 2019. But that's the whiskey that you're trying to, like the first whiskey you're trying tonight, which is the Arran 10 years old. It is essentially the benchmark of range, okay? It's the whiskey that wins all of our awards. It's the whiskey that we put out, if anyone tells us which whiskey would you choose, from the core range to showcase exactly what you want to do, what you do as a company, what style of whiskey is your whiskey, like who are you? Like we'll just put out the Arran 10-year-old, we swear by it. It's our best product out there at the moment. Because first of all, as an independent company, you get to try a whiskey that is 46% ABV, unfiltered and uncolored, so as natural as one can be. And in terms of quality, what we do, we get 100% first fill bourbon cask whiskey, so super fresh, juicy bourbon cask for 10 years. And then we move it into first fill Oloroso sherry hogsheads, which is a finish of around minimum 6 months. It goes from 6 to 12. It varies a little bit from batch to batch. But what you have is like a very different change from the previous 10-year-old, the one before the rebrand, which was much more bourbon-led. While this one, it has that finish that really puts it into a complete different category. It's much more of a autumn dram, if there was such a thing. Like, it's like the sort of warming, sweet, very fruity, very malty, very biscuity dram we're not into Christmas category, but like we're going in that direction sort of thing. And it's just absolutely stunning. I mean, the nose, lots of vanilla, lots of orchard fruits, a little bit, I could know, maltiness, like sweet biscuit. It's almost like a pastry whiskey. It's like walking into a pastry shop and you have almond croissant, you know, coming out, or like orange cakes coming out. It's very, very pastry-like. It's very warm and juicy. And it just goes down super wonderfully as well. We do a very slow distillation. I'll tell you about it later after we had a few more drams. But what I love the most about Arran is not only the flavors, very good quality casks, but also the texture. So while we try these whiskies, remember how they are in your palate. I think the 10 is possibly the creamiest one that we do, slightly oily, just a little bit, but essentially like super juicy and creamy, especially at the back of your palate. So I hope you like it. It's a great first dram to start the tasting with. What do you think? Have you tried it before? Yeah, someone is nodding.
We've got a couple of people starting to comment in the they're getting notes of brioche and fresh custard.
Nice, yeah, absolutely. Brioche all the way.
Fits
Absolutely.
exactly with what you were saying just before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guys, with all the whiskies that we're trying tonight, feel free at any time to write what you're getting from it, what your own personal tasting notes or opinions are in the chat, and any questions you have, and I'll try and monitor that and also pass them on for you. But yeah, so we've got Cameron saying that they love it. It's one of their staples. And Andreas is saying vanilla custard, shortbread biscuit, and juicy fruit.
Nice. Yeah, that's I couldn't agree more. That's exactly it. I think that's why people tend to like it. Aloy has a little bit of everything, apart from peat, of course. It's just very nice and juicy, like very nice, creamy, juicy. It's I call it like like when you go to a bar and you need to choose a dram, you know, for that, especially a whiskey bar that maybe you haven't been to, you know, and you want a classic, one that that doesn't disappoint. That's the sort of dram that I put to the 10-year-old in. The other ones are all go in different flavors, different direction. The 10 is just a constant, just always good. Like it's right next for me to like I've only 16, like Bunnahabhain 12 or Springbank 10, stuff like that. Like whenever you get it, whatever part of the world you're in, it's just gonna be good all the time. So that's the sort of idea I have behind the 10. But yeah, let me tell you a little bit more about the company as well. First of all, I forgot to introduce myself because I was so keen for you to try a whiskey. So obviously my name is Mariella. It's written on my screen, so it's pretty easy to see. I'm definitely not Scottish. I am Italian. I come from southern Italy. I went to the UK. I moved to the UK 8 years ago, discovered whiskey, made a living out of it, and now I live in Glasgow. So my accent is going a little bit all over the place, which is wonderful. I hope you understand everything I say. I try to speak slowly as well. Sorry, I do have that problem. But yeah, I always wanted to work for mostly free distilleries. That was my dream, and all of them were independent. Because I do believe, in working for an independent company, because there's just so much more freedom. It feels like a family, even if it isn't, which is great. I can call my boss whenever I want to. We're all very much just a small team of passionate people that just wants to put out in the market the best, whiskey possible. In terms of the company, we're obviously called the Isle of Arran Distillers, because at the moment we have 2 distilleries on the Isle of Arran. One up north in Lochranza, which is the original one, which is the one that is producing the whiskey you're drinking, of right now. It used to be called the Isle of Arran Distillery because obviously we only had the one. But now we changed that to Lochranza Distillery, which is the name of the town where the distillery is, because we don't want people to get confused where our new single malt will come out next year, which is coming from Lag Distillery in the village of Lag. To make it even more obvious, we're only producing super heavily peated whiskey down south. So when you try peated whiskies from the island, you'll know which is coming from our new distillery and not our old distillery. So hopefully the differences will be obvious once we release our first whiskey. Independent company, what does it mean? I already told you the way we treat our whiskeys, it's very much like any other independent whiskey company out there. We really care about quality over quantity. never chill filtration, never coloring, 46% or higher. You're actually going to try, this is the only 46% of your whiskey you're trying. You have like an amazing lineup tonight, guys. You're going from 46 to 50, and then we're going all the way up to 56. So super fun. But yeah, always natural. The quality, not only the way we make whiskey, very good traditional methods, wooden washbacks, slow distillations, but also cask policy. Since our master distiller James joined us in 2007, we've been very, very focused on getting good quality spirit in good quality cask. So our cask policy means that we only use our casks twice. So once those bourbon, sherry, wine casks have been used twice, we just get rid of them. We cut them in half, put some flowers in them, and just leave them around the distillery, or we actually sell them to locals for chips. That's what we do. And then locals either burn them in fires or make tables and chairs and other things out of them. We're also very young. A lot of people don't know of us because we're only 26 years old. And I know I say young a little bit, laughing right now, because there are new distilleries popping up in Scotland every other month. I don't know if in Australia it's the same. I know that you have quite a lot of distilleries, but we're living the boom of the whiskey, of the whiskey industry right now. Like everyone is making whiskey, everyone wants to open a distillery. When we opened, it was super rare. Like no one wanted to open a distillery at all. So we were literally the only crazy ones in the 90s that said, why don't we build a distillery? And we did. So we're a little bit ahead of everyone else. 26 years old means that we have stock that is quite old now. So we released our very first 25 last year, which is obviously super rare for us because we're a very small independent business. So we don't have a lot of those casks available. And then last but not least, we're very experimental. We've been since day one because we were trying to survive a period where no one was drinking whiskeys. No one wanted to drink whiskey. Distilleries were very much shutting down. So we started using a lot of finishes, like Glenmorangie style, to try and make ourselves a little bit different in the market. And we had, think of like a wine right now in your head, it passed through our warehouses. We bottled literally all sorts of wine casks that we could possibly find. I did a tasting 2 years ago at the festival. It was just called Italian wine cask finishes. And I had like 6 or 7 to choose from just in the warehouse alone. That's how mad it is. Like we have a lot of different wine finishes, barley varieties, peat, ppm levels. We just experiment a lot with that. But we have a stable wine cask finish core range. You'll try 2 of them today as well, the Amarone and the Sauternes. But yeah, we just try to keep it fun. When Lag will come of age, obviously we'll bottle a lot of the experimental stuff from there, and we'll focus in Lochranza just having like a main core range as well. So Lag is like our playground because we want to experiment with different peat varieties, different ppms, different barley varieties, and having a second distillery allows us to have much more scope for experimentation and fun there. So I saw some of you are writing in the chat. Let me have a look at what you're saying as well. Cool. So Rob is saying, do you finish any of the whiskies in Italian red casks? Well, Amarone is what you're trying today, which is the official one. It's the one that you find all the time. We did do Montepulciano in the past. We did do Sassicaia. We couldn't call it Sassicaia. We called it Super Tuscan. But we definitely had like quite a lot of different Italian red wines in the warehouses. I think we still have some at the moment, but we don't have enough casks to release them as a thing. Like, it would be like, I don't know if you saw the rare batches that came out a few months ago in the UK and around the world. They were super limited. There were some Argonne and some Bordeaux casks. We have like dreads of like old wine casks, that we still have in the warehouses that have been maturing for like 10, 15 years, but we don't have enough to put them out in the market. So I don't know exactly what we're going to do with them, but definitely going to drink them. Just don't know when and how, but it will happen eventually. So Mark is asking, is the peat coming from the island? Not, we never really had permission to use the peat from the island, but we're working at the moment because of Lag. We're working to find a way to use it, because when we were actually building these warehouses down at Lag and we were like excavating things, we found some peat and we said, we found it, it's ours. So it's on our ground. So now we kept it and we're drying it, and we're trying to find a way to use it, obviously legally, But we don't do our malting on site, and neither of the two distilleries. So we need to ship it to the mainland, ask the guys to use it for us, and then just like, get the barley back. So it's a bit of a long process, but hopefully in the future we'll find it. Our man Craig, I imagine, he's saying Arran 25-year-old, 21. Okay. He's telling us about the whiskies.
Yeah, they're going to be available. Those whiskies are 25, 21, 18, and some of the 15 wine cask will be available here, guys, in early next year, hopefully around March. We're just waiting on boats and international shipping, which is a bit of a nightmare at the moment. But we have got some great stock coming in. So that's something to look forward to moving forward. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Mariella, what's the second whiskey we're going to do tonight?
Yeah, the second whiskey we're doing tonight, actually, I don't know if I forgot to ask you this, if you sent out like a set, or like if people have numbers or something, or can I just call whatever I want and people will be able to pour their own?
Ladies' choice. You you take it how you like to do it.
I'm the boss. I just choose. I think I'm doing this flavor-wise, okay? So bear with me. I know if it doesn't make sense, but bear with me because I'm doing it flavor-wise. So let's try Amarone. Let's try Amarone first, then we try the Sauternes, then we try the Quarter cask, then the Machrie Moor, then the Drumadoon Point, then the Machrie Moor, and then the Arran Gold. It's all in here, don't worry. I know roughly
that
what
sounds
I'm
like
doing.
a good idea. I'll put that in the chat as well.
See, I don't drink coffee. I should start drinking coffee and I'll be much more awake if I did. I don't drink coffee anymore because the UK is awful coffee. So only drink Italian coffee. I'm a snob. Amarone. Someone actually mentioned the court rôti. Mark mentioned court rôti in the chat, which it was one of my favorites too. It was much more aggressive, in my opinion, than the Amarone. Because Côte Rôtie is a very funky, big, like juicy red wine from France. Amarone is like the opposite. It is quite big and juicy, but it's very soft, like velvety. It's very fancy, like Italian white red wine from northern Italy. It's made almost like it follows a little bit of a process of fortified wine in a way that they take the grapes, the Palomino grapes, when they're ready, it's super juicy, and then they let them dry a little bit under the sun, and then they make the wine. So nice, lovely velvety tannins, very, very big flavors, but very subtle. And I always like to joke that I think if you wanted to buy a bottle of Amarone, like proper Amarone della Valpolicella in a restaurant, or you wanted to buy a bottle of our whiskey finished in Amarone, maybe that wine will cost you more than a bottle of whiskey, because it does have a little bit of a price tag. But that said, it's delicious. You should try it at least once in your life. Long story short, we do these wine cask finishes. I'll give you a little bit more details, which are, let me find the slide for you so that you can see it. They follow exactly the same lifespan, okay? You see with a lot of non-age statement whiskies that we do, they're very similar. They're like 6-7 years in bourbon casks, first fill or refill, depends what we have, and then we finish them in the freshest wine casks that we have. The finish is 9 to 18, as my master blender James will say. In the first 3-4 months, you have color like straight away, and then flavor just comes after a little bit, like after maybe like 6-7 months, because those casks are super alive, especially if you get like red wine casks, like they're super fresh, so they're beautiful. And all these whiskies, both Amarone, all Amarone, Port, and Sauternes, they're all bottled at 50% ABV, unfiltered and uncolored. Now, this batch specifically were like super intense in color. I think your whiskey should have a bit of a red, like pink tint that just comes from the cask, which is lovely. And in terms of flavor, this is like spring in a glass for me. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like all floral, Turkish delight, it's like rose petal, but also like sweet dark chocolate, sweet like maraschino cherries. It's a little bit boozy, but also just like super sweet and elegant. And the thing that I love the most, I hope you agree, is the fact that it drinks so well at 50% ABV. Like I think it's like perfect ABV for the dram. If you find it a little bit too strong, is your dram 2 of the night, feel free to add a little bit of water. But I also highly recommend maybe just letting it breathe a little bit, because I think it's delicious. If you had a bit of chocolate on the side, or like a nice, custard creams or like a raspberry tart or something like that. It's like a dream of mine. Absolutely love this dram. I'm totally biased, of course. I'm Italian, but you know, it's a good dram. Let's read the chat. Tom is asking, how do they use peat to flavor the whiskey? I'll tell you later when we talk about Machrie Moor, our peated whiskey. So I'll go through that as well. Are you drinking with us, Anton, tonight, or are you not drinking? You have to try.
I'm off here. No, I've got some. I'm blending in there. Yeah, no, I've got some here. So I'm also got a driving and doing a few things. So I'm only having a very modest.
Very modest,
but
I
will say though, while we're talking about this at the moment, that especially of the core range and the cask finishes and everything, the Amarone is my favorite. I have a bottle of that at the moment pretty much always, and I find it doesn't matter what mood you're in or what type of whiskey you've had, or you might be going through a couple, it's always appropriate. You know what I mean? I just really enjoy it. So I hope that everyone out there is looking like when we're getting some things like cherry ripe, Turkish delight, floral honey, creamy mouthfeel, peaches and cream, dark chocolate, Lochranza cherries, molten cranberry, rose petals, cherries, bitter chocolate. Yeah, so everyone's getting a similar thing. And I must admit, I also very much like the Sauternes, which is coming next. But for me, the Amarone has been a favorite ever since I had it the first time. Yeah, Amarone or Amarone?
I mean, oh my God, Amarone is like in Italian, but I heard I do tastings worldwide, and I heard people calling it all sorts of ways. So whatever you think people will understand better, you use that word, because
I think Amarone is much more of an Australian twang to it.
Yeah,
Amarone.
Amarone makes me a little bit. Yeah, Amarone makes me look like, I'm like, it's like those people, they go like Giuseppe, and I'm like, there's a little part of me that dies every time, but I'm like, it's okay. You pronounce it the way you want to pronounce it.
No,
my English is not perfect, so I can't judge anybody else.
Well, it looks like from the comments we're getting that people are enjoying it. I'm seeing a lot of fairly happy faces in the gallery here. So I think a few people tend to agree with us. So
good.
Very good.
Yeah, let's move on. I actually just want to answer Rob's question very quickly. Have you won any awards with the ones we're trying tonight? We normally put our awards, the whiskies that we put our awards in are always the main 4 core range, which are Barrel Reserve, 10, Core Cask, and Sherry Cask. We don't put the wine cask finishes because we only bottle them once a year. I know we call them limited editions. They're not really, because they're available all year round. Normally, you can find them whenever. But because, they're like a side thing, like, that we do, and we don't really, put all the focus and the emphasis on them, we don't really use them for this sort of awards. But I can tell you the best thing that happened to us last month was that, last month, we won our Arran 10-year-old won the online Scotch Whisky Awards, which was the first man-powered, customer-powered awards that ever happened, in Scotland. And people, without, us, paying anything, they just decided that our 10-year-old was the best single malt at the moment in Scotland and the world. So that was the best award we ever won. I'm so proud because we didn't have anything to do with it. Someone just sent us an email and they said, you won, your 10-year-old is the best whiskey in the world. I was like, thank you very much. And it was great to hear the fact that people voted for it. So it's just lovely, to reinforce, that people like our whiskeys. So,
and I can imagine that would mean a lot more to the people on the ground making it than maybe some of the more commercial awards, shall we say.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan, I have to say. I know it's recorded. Not a huge fan of those commercial ones. It's wonderful when you win them, of course, but I much prefer those online Scotch Whisky Awards. I was so happy because I was like, oh, it's good to hear it, from the people, so it's good. Right, before we move on to the to the next whiskies. I actually just want to show you some quick photos about Arran. Have you guys been to Arran? Have you been to Scotland? Have you been to Arran? No, I know it's a bad question to ask after a bloody pandemic. I know, but I hope that you've been to Scotland, and I hope that you've been. Mark just said he's been to Arran. 1988. We didn't even have a distillery at the time. That's amazing. But yeah, I just. Sorry. I just quickly want to show you a few photos, just so that you know where we are. Arran is possibly one of my absolute favorite places in the world. Since I've arrived in 3 years ago in 2019, I absolutely fell in love. So yeah, I've been to Scotland many times before. Of course, I was working for a while, but Arran is very unique. I don't know if you know, it's called Scotland in miniature, because it kind of has the Highlands and the Lowlands of Scotland in one tiny little place. So a lot of people obviously go because of, tourism is a very well-known tourist destination, because as I always say, you can go up in the mountains in the morning, you can hike, go fell in the morning, and then you can go kayaking at night, all in the same space. Also, fun fact, you can see where our distilleries are, Lochranza up north and Lag down south. They're actually, when we went to register them, actually registered under different regions, because obviously islands is not a region. So Lochranza is a highland distillery. Lag is a lowland distillery, because the highland fault line cuts the island in half. So we're going to have a super heavily peated lowland distillery and a non-peated highland distillery up north, which is very funny. It just means that regions really don't make sense at all anymore these days. Like, whiskey regions don't exist anymore these days. So here we are on the Calmac ferry, which takes you from the mainland in Ardrossan over to Brodick on a beautiful sunny Scottish day, which never happens. I hope when you come to Scotland, it will happen just for you. And this is actually the island from southern part of Scotland, from Ayrshire. You can see what I mean by a high north and a low south. It's almost like, cutting up. It feels like two islands, like, in front of each other. Very, very different. And that's when you arrive in Brodick, that's what you see. It's actually my favorite place on Arran is Brodick Bay, because you're right in the middle of the island and you can see all the mountains up north with Cofell. This is my favorite walk. I always take my family here. It's called the Fisherman Walk. You can walk all the way along the beach until you reach the castle on the other side. The castle, which is beautiful. Main hub, so all the main restaurants, bars and everything, shops, they will stay in Brodick so that people passing by can just, gather all the things they need to gather. It's just a little show off. Scotland is beautiful. I always still surprised how beautiful it is. And this was actually this summer solstice when I was on the island, and it looked a little bit like Jurassic Park. Sort of like it looked like very, very raw. It was beautiful. This is Gotfell, our highest peak. If you're into hiking, beautiful long hike. I never reached the top. I hope one day I will. But it's a beautiful walk if you want to see like all of the island, from up close. If you want to hear and hopefully see golden eagles up close as well, it's a beautiful spot. And then as you move on, literally surrounded by mountains until you reach Lochranza, and then Lochranza goes out at sea, and you can see the castle literally is floating on the sea. And obviously nature and wildlife go hand in hand. So up here you can see stags everywhere, red deer everywhere. We have otters, golden eagles, we have red squirrels. So it's beautiful. It's like being up in the Highlands, it's like being up in the Cairngorm, so like Glencoe. So it's a lovely place. It's Lochranza Castle. But then when you turn the other way and you go the other side, all of a sudden you remember that you're on an island, because you can see the sea again. Are there any fans of Campbelltown whiskies or in the house? Campbelltown is literally right there. It's the Mole of Kintyre right here, the peninsula of Kintyre. You can literally see Campbelltown like with your eyes. That's how close it is. So Springbank, Glengyle, Glen Scotia, they're literally just over there. And then as you go down, the scenery changes completely. This is Drumadoon Point with the King's Caves. You can see the like old rocky beaches. One of the most beautiful golf courses we have on the island is right there behind these mountains over here, behind the hills. And then this is like the main view you get from the southern part of the island. So Elsa Craig, you have Kildonan and Plada Island. On a very clear day, you get to see Northern Ireland. And obviously nature changes as well. So you have swans everywhere, seals everywhere, like birds of all sorts, just absolutely stunning. So I hope if you're planning a trip to the island, if you're planning a trip to Scotland, you come see us. If you're on the West Coast, it's actually not that different at all. If you're passing through Glasgow, flying into Glasgow, like it's literally in 2 hours you can get there. I normally, if I have customers coming over, like let's say you were coming over and I wanted to come and say hi, I can leave in the morning around 6, 7 a.m., get there around 9, show you around the island, and then by 8 p.m. I'm back home. That's how easy it is. Obviously, ferries and weather permitting. I can't stress that enough. I know those beautiful photos were all sunny, but like just remember it's Scotland, so bring layers. You'll need them to survive. But that's it. Let me know if you've been to the island and if you like the photos, and we move on to whiskey number 3, I think. Yeah, I'm not drinking, so I'm not keeping
definitely only number 3. So we're on to the Sauternes cask finish now. That's great.
Nice. Yeah.
Just while everyone gets their glasses ready with the Sauternes, I will say that was a very beautiful looking place. I've always wanted to get to Scotland. My family's from there, and I've always
nice.
on the hit list, and so Arran will definitely now be even higher on that list once I finally get there. So,
where is your family from, roughly, like in Scotland?
My grandparents were born there, and I don't remember exactly, but it was a satellite town outside of Glasgow somewhere.
Oh, nice, cool.
Yeah,
no, definitely. Also, Glasgow, if you're coming this way, Glasgow is a beautiful city to visit too. Lots of very cool bars, lots of very good whiskey bars as well, lots of very nice restaurants. So yeah, absolutely.
You don't need to take me any further.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Sauternes, then I'll read your messages as well. Let me just find the Sauternes in this super non-organized presentation. There he is. Sauternes cask, Amarone, exactly the same story as I said before. 6-7 years, first fill bourbon casks, and then we move it into fresh, fortified, sweet white wine from France, from southern France. So now I know what you think. You go, oh, sweet, fortified wine, so this whiskey is going to be very sweet. And you're right, it is very sweet. I think, though, that it's actually one of the most complex whiskies, wine finishes we have. Amarone and the Port and the Sauternes for me, the Amarone and the Port for me start, rise and then go like in the same direction. The Sauternes, I think, changes in your palate because of the tannins in the cask. So on the nose, as sweet as one whiskey can be. I always get melon like covered in honey, like Hanukkah honey. It's like fake sweetness, that sort of like fake honey sweetness, almost like peaches and apricots, on the palate. As soon as you have it at the beginning, at the tip of your tongue, you get all the sweetness. Vanilla, again, is a bit malty, but it's very juicy as well. It's very zingy, very zesty, almost if you're reading like a sweet mandarin, like marmalade or something like that. Like, zesty, zingy, sweet. But I don't know if you agree with me or not. Once it goes down, it comes back, and you have a bit of like an oaky, like a toasted oak. Almost feels like smokiness to some people, but it's like very tannin, toasted oak aftertaste, which I find very interesting because it's not a straightforward whiskey. I actually think it varies, like it really changes in your palate, like, from the top of your tongue to the end on the side of your tongue. It really changes as you drink it. That's another one I think is if there was a dessert dram, this would be it. Even just on his own, after you had a meal and you wanted something sweet and you don't want to go into, bakery stuff or pastry and you just wanted a nice sweet dram, it's a lovely dram as well. Let me know what you think, and I'll go through your comments as well. So Mark said he was in Arran in 1988, which is great. I've been there 2018. Oh, you were very recently then, pre-COVID. That's amazing. I hope you enjoyed it. Mark said there was no whiskey and brain continuously. I know, that's why we opened the distillery, so that when people, go there and brains, at least they have something to do, so at least you can also enjoy a dram. You can go and spend like 2-3 hours in a distillery while it rains. I know the pain, don't worry. Living in Glasgow is like living in Gotham City. It rains literally every other day. So yeah, whiskey helps. Oh, thank you, Mark. Thank you for the comments. I'm glad. So okay, Anton shared the Amarone link. Julie said, yes, we've done a distillery tour. That's great. Andreas. Oh, I don't know what rock melon is. Is it a type of melon? Rock melon?
Rock melon is, do you call it cantaloupe?
Oh,
No?
cantaloupe. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know you called it rock melon. That's a nice name.
Either or.
It does look a bit like a rock. Makes sense. Juicy and creamy mouthfeel, apricot jam, and vanilla sweet honey. I agree, yeah. Toasted almonds, charred oak, candied citrus. Yeah, all of that. Long dry and finish, peppermint. Yeah, I get a bit of peppermint, like a bit of a peppermint note. Absolutely. I'm glad you agree, Leo, that you get the oak coming back. Cantaloupe. Everyone just said that cantaloupe.
They're quick on it.
My favorite so far. Oh, that's great. Like a late peaked Riesling. It's lovely too. It does have a bit of a Riesling. Definitely has a bit of a white wine juiciness to it too. Love the oak coming through, running around to lips. Mine Julie agrees. Good. I'm glad you like it. I hope you understand why we had the Amarone first. I think this is I hope you agree actually, because it's a much thicker dram on the palate, in my opinion. The Amarone is much more of a floral, fruity, elegant one. This is like nice, jammy, thick, like honey thickness to it. So Mark is actually comparing this one to the old Sauternes that we did. And by old, I just mean the old branding. The recipes didn't change, just so that you know, in case you find some of the old branding around Australia as well. The only recipes that changed are the 10. And that's it. I was thinking about it. Sorry, just the 10. The 10, the 18, sorry, the 18, 21, and 25, but only because we don't have control over those. Because, those are our oldest casks, so we just borrow what we can. We're a small independent company. We borrow what we can find. The 10, it was a conscious decision to make it a little bit darker because we have the Barrel Reserve now, which is the lighter, fresher bourbon cask dram, of the range. But these guys didn't change. The quarter cask didn't change. The wine casks didn't change. Exactly the same recipe as before. But because we bottle in batches, again, I think I said it like 30 times by now. We're a small independent company. But did I tell you that we're a small independent company? We're a small independent company. So there's obviously, there can be a little difference, because we just, bottle what we can. We actually have a serious problem in the UK right now because of COVID. A lot of people bought a lot more whiskies than we expected them to. And we actually been out of wine cask finishes for the past few months. And we will not bottle them again until spring next year. So actually, if you come to the UK now, there's no Amarone, no port, no Sauternes, and people are going mental. They're like, why are they not out there? And again, we are a small independent company. So tell them that we're a small independent company. Cool. Shall we move on? Are you still enjoying the Sauternes? I might talk to you a little bit more. You enjoyed the Sauternes. Actually, some lovely photos, archive photos. So before, I'm gonna take you into a virtual tour after the quarter cask, so we can actually walk around the distillery. But I did put together a presentation last year for our 25th anniversary because I wanted to show people how things change. Bearing in mind, Mark was there in 1988. Bearing in mind we're very young. The distilleries, the company, the island changed drastically over 25 years. So I just want to take you on a little tour as well of what happened. What happened is 25 years. First things first, though, we need to give an honorable mention to this guy, which is our founder. Not this guy, Harold Curry, which is the founder of Isle of Arran Distillers. Just so you know where everything started. So this guy is an Englishman, served during Second World War, worked in whiskey all his life. He retired as a managing director for Chivas. And he had a dream. He was like, I want to open my own distillery. And as I said before, you couldn't have chosen the worst time. Like, he chose the worst years ever to open a distillery. Bear in mind that distilleries were very much closing down. If you know the big names, like Brora, Portela, and Rosebank, like these guys, they all shut down in the 80s. To be even more specific, in 1993, Peterwijk Distillery goes down, which is a famous Diageo lost distillery. In 94, Little Mill Distillery goes down, which is a famous lowland lost distillery. And this guy bought land in 93, built a distillery in 94, and started producing spirit in 95. And there was literally no other way of supporting himself but by a few shareholders that were backing him up. And he also had this plan. You could actually fund the distillery. You could get, I want to say, 6 cases of the first Arran 10, 6 cases of the Founder's Reserve, which was the very first whiskey we put out, and 6 cases of the Lochranza blend, which is a blend that we made at the start of the distillery. And you could have gotten all that and a mini share in the company for 150 quid at the time. So that's how bad things were run. And that's why we were literally in survival mode, like since day one. We were trying to survive. We were selling casks to people, but lots of those people then went on and sell them to other people. We had to buy 60% of our stock back. So it's amazing that we're still here today and that we still have whiskies and that we're still bottling old whiskies and we're still independent, because we definitely had a bit of a hard time, moving on since 1995. So I hope you appreciate the fact that we're still here today drinking Arran whiskey, because it's not been easy for anyone. This is Lochranza in 1993. Any little village, you can tell now it's still exactly the same, but just a few more Airbnbs. That is exactly how it is. Also, it wasn't easy to convince the people at the time to have a distillery, because Arran is a quiet place. If you've been to a Scottish island, time is slower than anywhere else in the world. Like people, they have a completely different way of life. And the people didn't want a distillery. They thought it was going to be too busy. They thought they were going to destroy the island feeling, the community. So it was a long process to actually convince them, and finally we convinced them, and we bought land here in 1993. In 1994, I don't know if you know, there was no color photography in Scotland. It was a thing that happened. I'm joking. I don't know why these photos are black and white. It was the only photos I could find. So I don't know why somebody decided to make them in black and white to give them an older feeling to them. It was only 26 years ago. But we built our distillery in 94, and I don't know if you notice on our labels, we have 2 eagles on a still. That's because 2 golden eagles decided to come down from the mountains and nest on our distillery. So we had to wait for them to hatch their eggs and leave. And then we went on building the distillery. So now they're our spiritual animal. If you come to the distillery, you go to the visitor center, grab a dram and look up to the mountains, most likely you'll be able to see some eagles flying by. It happens fairly often. Like I will still see them, every now and then. In 1995, we finally have our spirit brand. We built literally only the still house, a filling store, and then right after 2 warehouses. So again, super low key, super small. You can tell them there's literally nothing apart from the still house and the filling store here. Sheep are not there anymore. They're on the road bothering you while you try to drive. And we built a lot of things around the distillery, as you can see from Anton's background actually right now. The distillery hasn't changed throughout the years. We just built things around it, like added things, but like the still house is still exactly the same. This is a photo that I love showing just because it shows you how things were mad at the time. In 1995, we were the first distillery after 20 years. And before, the next distillery showed up in 10, 15 years, we were the only people that decided to open a distillery, literally pioneering, the whiskey industry again. And a few people came by too, because they were pretty shocked and excited that we were there making whiskey. First, honorable mention, our very first master distiller, Gordon Mitchell, Michael Jackson, not the singer, obviously, but the beer and whiskey writer, the very famous beer and whiskey writer here. And then this guy, which actually came all the way from Japan to see us, this is Takeshi Taketsuru, which is the son of Masataka Taketsuru, which is the founder of Japanese whiskey. Is the president of Nikka Whiskey. He came from Japan just to see us, just to see why we were making spirit again and why we opened the whiskey distillery in the 90s. That's how shocking everything was. In 97, the Queen was passing by, very random. She was doing a tour of the west coast of Scotland. We were super lucky that she was there. So we invited her over and she cut the ribbon of our visitor center. So we opened our visitor center and we gave her 2 casks to say thank you. One for Prince William, one for Prince Harry, which now hate each other. and they don't get back to us, so we don't know what to do with those casks. So they're still maturing in our warehouse. And then in 1998, way more important than the Queen, obviously Ewan McGregor came by, also known as Obi-Wan Kenobi. At the time, it wasn't Obi-Wan Kenobi yet. It was just Ewan McGregor from Trainspotting. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's a great movie. You should totally see it. And he came by and we opened our very first whiskey cask. So obviously we gave him a whiskey cask as well with Trainspotting written on it. And the guy went teetotal a few years ago. So that's another cask lost. So one day I think maybe we'll auction them. If you're interested, just let me know. I'm interested in one of them too. They're just there maturing away right now. Just to show you our new project, 2017, we bought Lag down south for our new distillery, which looks nothing like our old distillery, super modern. We built it in 2018. 2019, we had Spirit and we opened our visitor center. Let me see if I have photos. So this is Lochranza Distillery now. I'll show you later, we'll do a little tour. And this is Lag Distillery now. So you can tell they're like super modern, super big, huge, beautiful distillery, which is only gonna produce heavily peated whiskies from now on. So this is us. I hope you enjoyed the photos. I think we should drink another whiskey now. I hope
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Andreas had a good idea
favorite.
that you should
Oh, sorry.
possibly release those royal casks as a single cask run. I'm sure
You know
there'd be
what?
lots of interest.
I was the one that said, why don't we do, did I miss the podcast? That's the podcast. I'm the only non-British person to work in the company, right?
Yeah.
So I said, when Brexit happened, the B word, the bad word, when Brexit happened, I was like, I know the royal family doesn't have anything to do with it, but I was like, why don't we just crack them open and drink them? I mean, it's, celebrating, celebrating the disaster that is happening to this country. But my boss didn't agree, so they're still there.
As Craig just said, we'd be happy to take them as an Australian exclusive.
Yeah, actually, maybe if we say, maybe they can organize a little trip to Australia. They can come and see you guys, and then on their tour, they can also open a whiskey and they can drink some. That'd be lovely.
Like a plan. Anyway, moving on to the quarter cask, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite of the range. I absolutely adored this, and I think it was good to try it afterwards because it's one of the toughest one. It's 56.2%, but it's a good continuation from the Sauternes and the 10 that you had before, because this is actually 100% bourbon cask matured. So it's first still bourbon for 6-7 years again, and then minimum 2 years in quarter casks, which are 125 liters, which are made of first still bourbon. So essentially, it's a double first still bourbon maturation, but the second one is super heavy because it's much more intense because the casks are smaller. So what happens when you mature whiskey in a smaller cask? You lose a lot of alcohol, you lose a lot of water, but you gain a lot of flavor. So imagine like the Sauternes or the 10 on steroids. That's what you're trying now. It's like those flavors, but like super intensified. So the fresh fruits, that you were having before now are like super thick and very tropical. Like you got a lot of mango and pineapple. The sweet vanilla is just right there. It's almost like caramelly. But because it's bourbon cask, you also get, a heightened spiciness or like heat. So I think this is like the liveliest of them all. I like it because it's not a boring dram. It changes in your palate, changes in your glass. If you give it some time or a drop of water, it's bigger and opens up to much more sweeter fruitiness, but it's just absolutely delicious. And if you remember what I was saying about the palate, how everything is changing, this is the waxiest of them all. I don't know if that's the word, but this like will stick to your gum and don't leave you like all night. It's like super thick and I love it. I love that texture. It's like so powerful. That's why it's my favorite. I love very waxy, big, juicy, fruity drams. So it would be like, my desert island dram for sure. So I hope you like that. Let me have a look. There's an Australian exclusive, as Craig is saying. Maybe if you have better contacts, with the princes, maybe. So Lisa is saying, I am Scottish, now living in Australia. Oh, nice. I visited Arran numerous times and it holds a very special place in my heart. Your climbed fell many times, definitely healthier and fitter than I am, but only once has it not been misty. Lochranza is beautiful and the rest of the island. I'm still a member of the Scotch Whiskey Society. Oh, that's lovely. I hope you have some Scotch Whiskey Society bars in in Australia as well. There is one now, Lisa, if you come back to Glasgow or Scotland, there is one now in Glasgow, literally too close to my house. It's like 2 minutes away from my house. And I'm going there this Saturday with friends because it's a beautiful new bar. If you find yourself up here, you should go visit it because it's a beautiful bar. Fantastic nose of nougat. Yeah, it's a bit of like a nutty nougaty thing. Absolutely. Rob said you had 4 core products, Quarter Cask 10, and what are the other 2? Well, we call them the 4 core products because they're the ones that you can definitely find all year round, which are Barrel Reserve, Quarter Cask, 10-year-old, and Sherry Cask. But to be honest, our core, I mean, what does it really mean, core range? It's just for us, core range, like, you know, it means those 4 products that we focus the most on. But in reality, like, you know, the wine cask finishes could also be considered, you know, core range, as well as the 18, 21, and 25, if only they were not super limited and they were out of stock 2 weeks after we put them out in the market, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I hope
More
you
about
understand.
availability in
Yeah,
that
exactly.
terminology.
If we had more casks, you know, like to bottle and to bring out in the world, then yeah. 18-year-old Sherry cask. Lots of chili hits, definitely. Oh, someone is answering. Mark, that's great. Robert Burns, we don't consider it. Robert Burns is one of those that we actually don't consider him a core range product, just because it is a side thing that we do just for Mr. Burns. It's very much just like, you know, a homage to the man. As you can imagine, we sell a lot of that in January, and then scattered around the year, we sell some more in different markets. But yeah, we mostly focus on that in January for Burns Night. So we do a lot of Burns Night activities in January. Lisa said this one is a bit of a kick, definitely. So I love it. Creaming soda on the nose, absolutely. I actually make a cocktail home. If you are like me and you're nerds and you like Harry Potter, I don't know how you are. Don't judge. But if you are nerds like me and you like Harry Potter, you can make a butter beer with a float. That's what I do like at Christmas time with my family. We do quarter cask, like a nice portion, cream soda, and then we do like a Mackey's vanilla scoop on top in like a butter beer glasses, and we have alcoholic butter beer at Christmas time. I know.
Sounds very nice.
Nerdiness to extreme levels, but yeah, it goes well with cream soda. Is it cream soda or iron brew? I'm not a huge fan of iron brew. Don't tell them. I really don't like iron brew. But maybe quarter cask and iron brew. Why not? I mean, I've seen worse. So yeah, sure. Can you get iron brew in Australia?
No, not as a regular thing. I think you can access it in specialty places, but it's not common though.
Yeah, no. Is that a Scottish affogato? Yes, that's my Italian take on on a float. Absolutely. Is this the equivalent of the old Buffy? Yes. I forgot to say, we don't call it a Buffy on the label anymore. We call it a Buffy on the tube, because a lot of people didn't know what a Buffy was, and they don't know still what a Buffy is. And in the old days, before the rebrand, it was actually the Buffy quarter cask. So people read the Buffy and they didn't read the quarter cask below, so they didn't know what they were drinking. Since the rebrand, we're trying to be a little bit more transparent, direct, simplistic, so that people read the label and then exactly what they're drinking. So we call it the quarter cask, but on the tube it says the Buffy. For those of you that don't know what a Buffy is, it's a very traditional small house find in scattered places around Scotland. Like if you go hiking, if there's like huge farmland, you see these beautiful tiny little houses, which are mostly open to public. So you can go and use them as shelter. You can use them overnight, if you're doing long hikes and you want to sleep somewhere, so they use them as sleeping places. And they're lovely. You can find people, you can find food. Someone might have left a bottle of whiskey for you. Like I always say, you can find a murderer. You can find all sorts of things. It's fun. Like you can go around, and just stay in these beautiful Buffys. Like there is also like books, like there are maps. You can walk and find them in beautiful, stunning places, up in the Highlands or around Scotland. So there is a correlation between the small house and the small cask. That's why we call it the Buffy quarter cask, because it's a small traditional house, a small traditional cask. So that's why. I think we should talk about peat as well before we move. I know we tried the Drumadoon Point. Okay, sorry, I forgot. So we are going to do a very quick tour of the island. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time tonight. But,
that's why you're pulling that up. I've been informed by Leo and Lisa that you can get Iron Brew here in Australia and that Coles have it in the international aisle. So there you go. Anyone who wants to try Iron Brew, if you haven't had it before, get to Coles and into the international aisle and give that a shot. So back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to try it at least once in your life. It sells. I'm pretty sure everyone told you this. It sells. Scotland sells more Iron Brew than Coca-Cola. So it's one of the only countries in the world where Iron Brew just kills, any other soft drink ever existed. So people do care about Iron Brew a lot here. So yeah, just a very quick tour of the distillery. Welcome to Lochranza Distillery and welcome to our visitor center. So here we are in our beautiful visitor center. You have walked in through that door and then you have a few options. You can do our tour, like, with us. You come here, they'll ask you to wait and then we'll take you on the tour. We'll give you a glass of Arran 10 to warm you up. And then we'll start talking to you about how we make whiskey. If you are hungry, we have a very nice cafe called Cask Cafe up here. All the classics, staples of the distillery visitor centers, like, charcuterie boards with local salmon, local hams, local cheeses, local oatcakes, local chutney. Arran does everything, like, trust me, absolutely everything that can be eaten, like Arran produces it. Chocolates, venison burger, that's my favorite. Haggis and cheese. So all the Scottish staples, you can have them all up there. One of the best Arran Gold sponge cake you'll ever try in your life as well. Make sure you try it when you go next time. And then for those of you that are into buying whiskies, we obviously have an amazing visitor center shop, which is fully stocked. So if you go over here, you have all sorts of like bottles, distillery exclusives, craft products that are made on the island as well. So lots of souvenirs. And then my favorite, we have the Arran casks. We were talking about, those random wine casks that we don't have enough of, to produce and put out in the market. Most of the times those casks actually make it here. We call it the Arran, which is a person from Arran. And it's just something special that you can take home. At the moment, for example, I can tell you there is a Chateau Margaux. So Chateau Margaux red wine, fully matured whiskey that you can bottle and just take home. It's 58%, super thick, beautiful red wine. It's matured whiskey, which is great. So yeah, you can take a lot of nice little things at home. I'm now going to try and take you around the still house. Let's see if the internet is with me. Here we go. So let me try and go a little bit forward. No, stop it. No, sorry, never mind. So here we are. Lochranza Distillery. When you come down from the mountains, you see one of our old still outside, but literally the first thing you see when you come to Lochranza, so you know you're arrived in Lochranza. We built an office 3 years ago, so that people like me, instead of going around eating cheese and talking to people, having a chat and having some whiskey, we can actually do some work as well. So it's a very sad place. And then we have our still house right here, the same one that you saw from 95. You can see things have changed a lot. We have a car park as well, visitor center, filling store. What we do now is we take you directly into the still house. You can see how close the mountains are, by the way. When you know about this, the eagles and everything, that's usually how close the mountains are. And our water source comes straight from those mountains as well. Lochranza Distillery, a very compact distillery in a way that what you have to do is just walk 1 flight of steps and then you're there. It's usually how easy it is. Super tiny, super compact. I'm pretty sure we all know how to make whiskey, but I'll just give you my very short version of how to make whiskey. If you get a beer without hops, you distill it twice, you put it in a cask for 3 years, you have whiskey. Ta-da! Literally distilled, fermented, cereals. That's actually what we're doing here. And then matured. Obviously, we're talking about single malt Scotch whiskey. So it has to be one distillery malted barley. And it has to be in Scotland. So here we are. Maturation has to happen in Scotland as well. Because someone talked about peat, I think I should just mention it. Lochranza Distillery is not producing peated whiskey anymore since 2017. So I know that the next whiskey you'll try is peated, but already knows if you want while I talk you through the process. But we are actually not producing Machrie Moor whiskey anymore. Because we have Lag, which will take over the peated production, and because we have a lot of casks of Machrie Moor, so we'll still bottle it in the future, but we're just not producing it at the moment. So that's what's happening. But how do you make peated whiskey? You essentially take barley, you malt the barley, so you spread water on it and you let it germinate. You want the sugars, the enzymes to be alive again in the barley. So you spread water, the barley wants to grow, but then you want to stop that growth. So you want to stop that germination. So in the old days, people, used to use peat, and some distilleries still do today. The distilleries had a perforated floor where you put the barley on top of it, and then you burn a fire underneath so that the heat and the smoke will stop the germination and dry the barley. When you use peat, which is essentially decomposed animal and vegetal matter that builds up underground, so it's actually moss, it's like a block of earth essentially. There are phenols, which are these chemical compounds that get absorbed by the barley. So the peatiness, the smokiness of the peat burning gets absorbed by the barley. So that's how you get peated whiskey, because the barley is being peated, has been smoked, then that peatiness is transferred through the whiskey as well. So that's essentially how you make peated whiskey. We don't do that at the moment. We just use normal barley that comes from the East Coast. We grind it. This is our grinder, like a grist bin. We crush the barley, and then we put it into our mash tun, which is essentially a porridge maker machine. We add hot water, and then we let the sugars from the barley extract into the water. What we want to do here is get the sugariest water we can possibly do, warm water, and then just remove the barley, give it to the farmers so they can use it as animal feed, and then just be left with some very, very sugary malty water. That's essentially what we do. We do 3 different waters at 3 different temperature, so that the temperature rises all the time, so that we try to start as much as possible. But as soon as we have 1,000 liters of wort, that's how we call it, the sugary water, we put it into our wash bags. I was telling you at the beginning, we're very traditional. We still use wooden wash bags, which are a pain because they're beautiful, they're a piece of art, but they get ruined very fast. You can tell the difference here. This is a 26-year-old wash bag. This is a 10-year-old wash bag. You can tell why people decide not to do wooden wash bags anymore. Because it's wood, obviously. So wood is porous, wood absorbs things, wood dilates. So obviously it gets ruined through time. But it is the old way, a traditional way of making wash, or making beer in this case. If there are beer, lovers or people that are interested in beers in the chat, you also know that if you were fermenting something in a wooden vessel, first of all, you can't control temperature. So once, our beer is fermenting, our wash is fermenting, we can't control it. If it's exploding a little bit, if it's a slower fermentation, we can't really control it. And second, we can try and clean it as much as possible, but because wood is porous, there's still always going to be a layer of microorganism and bacteria that lives in our wash bags. So it means that our wash is our wash, is unique to us. Our beer is our beer. We do a fermentation that goes from 55 hours during the week to 110 during the weekend, because we don't work the weekend. So the stillmen leave those wash bags filled overnight for the 3-4 days until Monday morning. So on average, we say that we do 75 hours fermentation with distiller's yeast called Carry M. So, hot water, yeast, the yeast feeds on the sugar, it releases carbon dioxide, alcohol, and a lot of other things. And at the end of the fermentation process, we're left with a very horrible beer, 8% ABV. You should definitely try it when you go to a distillery. Don't drink too much because it can affect your bowels very easily. But we're left with a beer which is like 8% ABV, very malty beer that then we have to distill. So distillation is possibly the most interesting thing that we do, because we run one of the slowest distillations in the industry. The first distillation is the one that will take the beer and turn it into a clear spirit of 20% ABV. It happens in our wash stills here on the right. And then we do a second distillation in our spirit stills, which will take that much higher. And then we take our cuts. So we let the spirit run, and then we take our hearts, the spirit that essentially goes into the casks afterwards. When we do our hearts, it normally lasts around 2.5 hours, and we take 6-7 liters of alcohol per minute. We do it by controlling the temperature of racks inside the stills. You can tell our stills are, I don't want to say boring, but there's nothing special about them. You know, they're just very much small onion shape, you know, stills. The line arm goes a little bit higher. There's no reflux whatsoever. So controlling the temperature allows us to slow cook it, essentially, slow distill it as much as possible. We do that because we want the best alcohols. We want the esteriest alcohols, if that was a word. We want the most volatile alcohols because those are the ones that give you that beautiful texture that we were talking about before. It's the one that makes you drink our whiskeys in a 50% ABV without any burning sensation or horrible sensation in your throat. So we believe, you know, that a good spirit in a good cask, you know, makes a good whiskey. So we do take our time when we distill and we produce our whiskeys, so that then when it goes into very good quality casks, hopefully you'll agree, it's also a good dram, you know, in your glass. I might stop here, otherwise we're talking for a little bit too long. But, oh, sorry, by the way, I said pour yourself a Machrie Moor, and I forgot that we're actually drinking the Drumadoon Point before. Are you already on the Machrie Moor? That was my fault, sorry.
I'm not sure. I think we've got people on both. I know Mark's, I think, on the Drumadoon. So
sorry, that was totally my fault.
No, just maybe if everyone has the ability to go to the Drumadoon, if you haven't already gone to the Machrie Moor, that would still be the preferred way to do it. So let's jump into the Drumadoon now.
Sorry about that. That was totally my fault. I forgot about the Drumadoon Point. Sorry, guys.
We forgive you.
Shall I leave now? So I'll tell you about the Drumadoon Point and very quickly, and then I'll look through your comments. So Explorer series. I'm actually super glad you're trying this because I don't remember the last time I tried it. I think maybe it was festival this year because it sold out very fast here. So super special drums, as special as they come. This is a 23-year-old small batch, so it was like a limited edition that we did for the world. Explorer series, we do this series every now and then, like, you know, we did the Smuggler series a few years ago, the Devil's Sponge Post, the Icons of Arran. So we do this series every now and then. And 4 years ago we started the Explorer series, which was an homage to the island. So we did 4 for the 4 cardinal, like, you know, points. Drumadoon being west. I showed you a photo of Drumadoon Point. It's essentially the western, you know, the most western point on the Isle of Arran. And what we did in this case, we got some of the oldest casks that we had in our warehouse and put them together. In this case, I think we're talking about 97s. Yeah, 97s, 98s together. Again, remember we started filling casks in 95. So essentially the very first casks we ever bottled. And these ones are old, old sherry hogsheads, sherry casks. One thing I didn't tell you before is that because we were in survival mode and because we were trying to just make things, you know, work in 95 and in the years after, we actually filled a lot of casks without keeping track of them. We were filling whatever we could find, especially the cheap casks. So we're actually not able to tell you much about these casks. When we talk about the 18, the 21, 25, the Drumadoon Points, I actually can't tell you exactly what casks they are. I can tell you they're hogsheads. We believe they're sherries, but like we don't have any specific information. And that's why having a much better cask policy now makes such a huge difference, because people go, what sherry is it? What refill is it? And I'm like, we don't know. So all you need to enjoy now is just the fact that we still have these casks and we put them out in the world, which is amazing for us. And I don't tell you about flavors because I think it's a masterpiece. It's a bit of a shame to tell you what to taste in this because it's just a beautiful old masterpiece of an Arran. But I tell you what I think what happens with the liquid. You tried young Arran, like 6-7 years old, and I think it already reached that maturity that it's good, you know, to be drunk at. I think, you know, the Amarone, the Sauternes, the quarter cask, they're perfect as they are. It is a little bit older. 10 to 15 is when our whiskey kind of peaks in terms of juiciness and liveliness, and then after that, it's all soft, smooth, elegant. So the Drumadoon Point, it's just like, it should be like fruit juice in your mouth right now. It should be like super magisterial, if you know what I mean. Like very elegant, old sherry, you know, like dark, but like super soft and lingering. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I'll show you a photo just in case you haven't you haven't seen it before, actually just Google that. So yeah, that's how it looks like. So Drumadoon Point in a beautiful tin box, 23-year-old. It's amazing if you still have it in Australia. I did buy a bottle myself. And you can see there's a man golfing. I told you before, Shiskin Golf Club is one of the most beautiful golf courses you can get on the island. So if you're into golf, make sure you you fill your hip flask with this, and then you have a little sip when you go there. Mark is showing us the photo as well on his screen. Yeah, it's the bottle as well. Right.
I know when the Drumadoon Point first came in and we first received stock of it, we tried it, and Craig and I loved it. Like, Craig, I think Craig said something along the lines of, it's just a classic malt. It was really just delicious. We were super impressed with it.
Yeah.
And it's been very well received.
It is. It's a beautiful, beautiful old dram. I feel like talking about flavors is a bit of a, not disrespect, but like our whiskey is it changes so much when it gets old. I think it's better if people just gather their own opinions about it, also because it's a matter of taste, But this is definitely one of those style of whiskeys that I think it should be like a special occasion sort of whiskey. I'm just gonna read your comments a little bit. So I don't know if you asked any questions. So somebody said, do you have a drumming bar at the visitor center, a la Talisker? We do have a bar, but we normally use it for the tours or the tasting. So if you do a tour, then you'll end up in the drumming bar, and then we'll give you a few drums, like, whatever you want to try. But we don't have a bar as such. Like, you can't just walk in and drink, if that's what you mean. I haven't been to Talisker, I'm afraid. So I think a drumming bar, that's what he means. So unfortunately not. Is there a comparable soft drink flavor-wise to Iron Brew? I think actually at COP26, what was her name? The very famous, oh my God, that very famous woman, US woman, Congresswoman, Tizio Cortez. Is that how you pronounce her name? I think she did a little TikTok. She tried Iron Brew for the first time because she was in Glasgow for COP26, and she said that it tasted like cola champagne, which is like a South American soft drink. But also, if you tried Inca Cola, guys, I don't want to be mean, but imagine orange color, chemical flavoring and sweetness in a soft drink. You got Iron Brew. That's exactly how it tastes like. So I did you a favor right there. That's exactly how Iron Brew tastes. Just chemical orange flavors. That's what it is.
Just getting away briefly from the Iron Brew conversation. Before I forget, there will be, for everyone here on the tasting event tonight, there will be a 10% off Arran code that will be across the entire Arran range. Doesn't matter what bottle. That I will post very shortly, and that'll be available for the next 48 hours for all of you guys. So if there is anything that you've tasted today and you go, oh, I really like that, or whatever, that will be available to you guys very shortly. And for those interested in the Drumadoon, we still have a dozen available. So they won't last long. They've been moving very quick. So it's a fantastic whiskey. Yeah,
I'm glad you like it. Thank you also for the comments. They were very positive. Thank you very much. Delicious, juicy, fruity, warm. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. You still have 12 bottles left. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So Mark is asking, will there ever be a core 14-year-old come back? It's the most delicious dram. I agree. I agree in the way that I miss it too. I love it. And I've been silly enough not to buy the last bottles when I joined in 2019. So I miss it dearly. But we are feeling it's a gap that we have now, whereas because when we started the distillery, there were some years, some bad years, that we didn't produce whiskey. Again, demand wasn't, high. So we have some gaps in our warehouses. As soon as we fill those gaps, we hope to bring back maybe in 2-3 years' time. We don't know yet, 12, 13, 14, something that fills the gap, because now we go from 10 to 18 straight away. Yeah, I want to see what are your favorites at the end as well.
Rob's confused because he likes all 5. Good man, Rob. We can empathize.
Our choices. And we haven't finished yet. So we're actually moving on to the Machrie Moor. I'll just show you a few photos of Lag before so that you can finish your Drumadoon Point in peace. Yeah, just to show you some photos of Lag, because Lag will be our heavily peated thing. So, oh no, this is okay. This is not as bad as I thought. So, Lag Distillery, heavily peated. What we're gonna do, I told you already, we're not producing peated stock anymore in Lochranza. We have this beautiful, super new distillery, which is actually going much higher than Machrie Moor. The Machrie Moor that you're trying now is only 20 ppm to 0 per barley I'm talking about. So obviously the whiskey is much lighter than that. And yeah, and look, and Lag, we never really wanted to compete with Isla. So even the Machrie Moor that you try now, it is slightly peated, like it's not heavily peated. And the peat that we use and the barley that we use come from the East Coast, from mainland. So if you think that, you know, the peat is all, you know, decomposed vegetal and animal matter, obviously if you use it from an island or the coast, it's going to be full of seaweed and fishes and whatever lives, you know, nearby or lived nearby. But because we use peat from the mainland, which is mostly heathery, grassy, you know, sort of peat, our smokiness is also very different. It's a very heathery, soft campfire smokiness. And Lag, we're using the same peat, but at 50 ppm. And we're gonna, as I said before, we're gonna experiment with peat from obviously different parts of the world as well. So that in the future, once we release our main single malt, we'll then go and find like beautiful things to, you know, have fun with. Lag, not only we opened Lag, you know, because we wanted a second distillery, but also because we needed space, warehousing. We built 4 new warehouses. So hopefully soon we'll be able to tell you that all our casks are matured on the island. We have like 5% still left on the mainland that we're waiting to bring back home. So hopefully soon we'll have that space. But we also have barley fields. You can see them. So we have the chance to do 100% Arran, you know, whiskey with Arran barley, Arran peat, you know, Arran everything. And because we don't believe in making vodka or gin or like other products, other spirits apart from whiskey to survive, we actually have orchards. We have 900 apple trees. So maybe in the future we'll do something like peated brandy or smoky brandy or smoky cider. We don't know yet, like Calvados sort of style. But in terms of Machrie Moor, this guy, what you need to know is that it is around 6-7 years old. And it's fully matured in first fill bourbon cask. We do the similar product, the same product also at 46%, but the one you're trying tonight is my favorite. So I'm glad it's the cask strength one, which is 56.2%. And I actually think if you're into peated whiskey, the cask strength is like the best, like, you know, of the two, because the higher ABV makes that smokiness come to life like much more. But yeah, it's essentially an Arran with peat. So you still have all the citrus notes, all the apple, you know, like the orchard fruits, all the sweet vanilla, and then you have this whiff of smokiness coming to hit you like back. You know, it's almost like a hug at the end of the dram that kind of warms you up, but it's a very, yeah, it's very like campfire the next day sort of, you know, smokiness, which is delicious. Just tell you about the name. Machrie Moor is an archaeological site on the Isle of Arran. Standing stones. You have to work for 40 minutes in like these sheep fields, and then you reach this like huge standing stones. But Machrie Moor is also the biggest peat bog we have on the island. So when you go see this archaeological site and you walk around, it's very jumpy, like it's very bossy. So they're very wet. Make sure you're wearing like walking shoes because it's super wet, super mossy. But it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
So
Nothing beats a dram of Machrie Moor and Machrie Moor, by the way. That's what I always do whenever I go. It's just like a thing that, like a walk that we always do whenever we're on the island. And then we have a dram right there. It warms you up. It's lovely. So you should do that.
So you were saying just before that the Machrie Moor that we're tasting now is 20 ppm, and that what you're looking to make in Lag is going to be more like 50, or could be up to 50 or more. Yeah. So that's more than double. So that's a real expansion out into that heavily peated area. When you said that you found some peat when they made the Lag Distillery and this sort of thing, and using island peat potentially, do you think that would give it more of a, not necessarily like Isla, but more of that sort of salty maritime sort of characteristic that other peated distilleries are known for?
Yeah, we hope so. The thing is that nobody has ever used Arran peat before, so it's a surprise. It's gonna be a surprise for everyone. But our warehouses are essentially on the coast, so so yeah, we do hope that our peat, the lag peat, will have a bit of the maritime influence. We're also looking at getting Irish peat from the coast. And see how that's gonna compare. But yeah, as I said, it's all like I think it's gonna be a surprise for all of us. It's just gonna be let's see what happens. Let's see how it tastes like, and
And be
just have fun with it.
something uniquely Arran.
Yeah, that's the dream. I mean, I would love to see a lag 100% made with Arran barley and Arran peat. That would be like the ultimate dream for us, because it's a bit of a hard thing to do for us, because we don't do our own malting, we don't do our own anything peatiness, so we need to ask the guys on the mainland to do it. It's like the Kilhoman dream, the 100% Isla sort of product. So
fingers crossed for you.
Yeah. if we are allowed to use it, we'd love it to. It'd be nice to use it. So yeah, definitely. We did something fun, by the way, already last year and the year before. The first project we did was we filled some casks, 50-50 Lag New Make and Lochranza New Make. So we have a blended at birth, product and what they were gonna bottle. And then the most exciting one for me is we got 40 casks from Calvados Drumadoon in Normandy. And on the same day, we filled 20 up in Lag and 20 up in down at Lag and 20 up in Lochranza. And I hope we'll bottle them side by side. So you have heavily peated Lag, fully matured in Calvados, and then non-peated Lochranza, fully matured in Calvados. You can buy it as a set. I hope one day we'll do that so that people can, have two distilleries at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a couple of comments come through. Julia says that the Machrie Moor is amazing in contrast to obviously the first 5 whiskies we had coming through. Obviously, none of them had been peated. And Mark questions on Fingal's dog.
Yeah, so the reason why there is a dog on the label is because not only Machrie Moor is an archaeological site, there's also a circle of stones, which legend says was the seat of the giant Fingal, which is a famous giant in Irish and Scottish mythology. You might have heard of Fingal's Cave up in Stafford, or Fingal's Pathway in Ireland as well. But yeah, it's a famous giant, like mythological giant. And the legend says it used to come over, sit at Machrie Moor, and then tie his favorite dog to one of the stones, because one of the stones has a hole in it. So when you look at our bottle, there is the dog called Bran, which is chained to a stone. So if you turn the tube around, you see that the dog is like chained, and the chain follows all the way around the stone at the back of the tube. So that's why there is a lovely dog on the label as well. It's a nice story.
Absolutely. So what do we think, people? Are we enjoying the Machrie Moor? Get a thumbs up, yeah. Got one thumbs up from Brian, thumbs up from the crew. Well done. It is definitely not intensely peated, as you indicated. It's on the lighter scale, and it's it's delicious. Yeah.
So I think you also have a nice treat. Anton and Craig treated you to a tipple of the Arran Gold.
There should be an Arran Gold hiding in there, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a secret right now. Okay, so what you want to do is drink a bit of the Arran Gold neat, and then pour some other Arran Gold in another glass, another drop of the Machrie Moor, and you're welcome. Like, it's the best thing ever. I don't know why we don't do it as a company, but like smoky cream liqueur, somebody should do it. I don't know why they don't do it. But if you like smokiness, if you like smoky whiskies, it's something I do all the time. I absolutely love a bit of smoky whiskey into that cream liqueur. But yeah, but it's delicious. It's delicious stuff. I'll show you a photo. It's a good nightcap, isn't it? That Arran Gold. It's lovely stuff.
Absolutely.
It looks like this. It's been rebranded as well recently. I want to say only a few months ago, summertime, I think. And a lot of distilleries, do liqueurs. Somebody do sweet liqueurs, like honey liqueurs or whatever. We decided to go down the cream liqueur path, which is nice. The hashtag is, it's recorded, but don't share it with the Diageo anyone. But the hashtag is better than Baileys. So that's my motto whenever I put this to people, because it tastes less chemically, of course. It's a little bit more natural, and there is Scottish whiskey in it. So, and you know that's real Scottish whiskey in it. So it's about 17% ABV, and it drinks way too easily. You can drink it neat. You can put it over ice cream. You can put it in your coffee. I see people doing lattes with it. I make tiramisu with it because my boyfriend doesn't like coffee. So I warm it up a little bit. Then I dip the Savoyard, like the biscuits in it. And then I make tiramisu with dark chocolate in it. You can use it in whatever way you want. So it's just like a lovely warming, crisp, cream liqueur. It's the UK is like the cream liqueur time now because it's Christmas time. So everyone goes and buys it by the cases. But I don't know what temperature is where you are guys right now. I don't know if it feels the same. Maybe if it's over ice.
It's the sort of the start of summer here, so it's warming up depending on what part of the country you're in. Or today, if you're in Melbourne, it was probably comparable with you where you are at the moment.
Yeah,
the Arran Gold, like you said, as a neat or on ice, and funnily enough, you say that we have a recipe that we did of tiramisu with using Arran Gold to soak the biscuits and whatnot. So
nice.
Spot on, fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Julia, I've been asked what our supplies of Arran Gold are like, and they're fairly healthy. So unless you want to buy a pellet, I think you're pretty safe. No, we've got a lot of the gold. It's very, very popular here, I must say. We move a lot of the gold. It's I think people often they'll go and they'll buy their whiskey that they're after or whatever, and then like a little addition to the order. They'll take a bottle of the gold for that little indulgence, nightcap or sweet treat or whatever you want to call it. But it's I haven't, apart from people who can't stand cream liqueur, it wouldn't matter what type of thing it was. Everyone else seems to love it.
Yeah, I know. It's a big divide. I know that. Every time I have it at a show, there's people do that, and it's like, and then we have a cream liqueur, and you can tell by the eyes, like there are people going like, oh, and then there are people going like, nah, and I'm like, okay, fine, to each their own. It's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's been lovely to talk to you. If you have any more questions, please put them in the chat.
Yeah. I might take this opportunity to invite anyone out there who's got a specific question that they would like to ask to one at a time, please, to unmute, ask a question if you'd like. And I'm sure that Mariella, you'd be happy to answer a couple for us.
If I can, absolutely.
Of course. So if anyone's out there, please say hello and introduce yourself and let us know.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
Andreas.
So the only Arran I tried before tonight was the port cask, and I love that one. And you've hit 6 out of 6 tonight as well. So I definitely need to look more into Arran whiskies. My question though is, do you guys do, or are you looking at doing single cask releases?
That's a good question, and I actually can't answer it because it's the way it works is the sales manager for Australia. I imagine you're talking about single cask releases for Australia, right?
Yeah, something that we could actually get.
Yeah, because we do obviously single cask releases for our home market. We do distillery exclusive at different markets, but that's a conversation that starts. Sorry, this call is killing me. That starts and ends with Craig, our Australian distributor, and Rob, our Australian sales manager. So it would be a matter of Craig reaching out to Rob and saying, can we do a single cask? And then Rob deciding, if it's a feasible thing or not. I would love to see you guys getting a single cask, of course, because I just love, being able to share single casks, with the world, because it's a good way to try something different and unique from Arran. I can't tell you if this chat has already happened or if something is in conversation, but I hope that it will happen one day, and maybe we can tie it up with a market visit on my side as well, so that I come back to Australia. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm joking, but I hope that it will happen eventually.
So do we. Very much so. Rob has asked on the chat that a famous Scottish distillery is moving away from non-chill filtered. Do you know why they would do that?
You know what? Thank you very much for reading that NCV, because I've been thinking while I was answering Andreas, I've been thinking about what that was for the last 2 minutes. So thank you. Non-chill filter. I was like, what is that? I thought he was talking about those what is it? NFTs. I thought he was talking about like virtual, like I was like, what are they doing? But no, we're definitely not thinking about no-chill filtration. Absolutely no chance. I mean, it's part of who we are. It's the joy of being independent. We can do whatever we want, and I don't think we're thinking of chill filtering anytime soon. That said, there are some products in our core range that are chill filtered for a specific reason. Like the Robert Burns is lightly filtered. The Barrel Reserve is lightly filtered because they bottled at 43% ABV, because we want it to be easier to drink. So there is a reason behind. We want them to be easy and, like there's no other way of saying it. We just want it to be easy drinking whiskeys. So we do a filtration for those. So that 43%, they stand a little bit more of a chance of not getting cloudy, because we could bottle them at 46, but then, they will get cloudy very easily. Again, we're very honest about it. Most of our core range, it's not filtered. We don't chill filter casks, single casks, or, most of the stuff, but some products are filtered because they're for entry level or beginners, or like people that just want a dram and want to mix it up in cocktail, or, just want an easy thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any other questions? No? Well, it might be a permanent junction then to say thank you, Mariella, for your time, for joining us this morning. For you, what time have you got over there?
It's time for breakfast now.
Time for breakfast. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So while the rest of us go and enjoy a couple more whiskeys, I'm sure you enjoy your breakfast. We very much appreciate your enthusiasm and your energy that you've brought to us with the presentation today. And to everyone else, thank you for joining in and participating today in this tasting event. We hope you enjoyed the whiskies and hopefully found a new favorite perhaps. And as I said, there's in the chat, there is a code that has been posted. It is Arran10 off. That'll be there for 48 hours. If you do think you might want to buy something, that's fine. And we hope that you enjoy Arran going forward. And on behalf of Craig and myself, thank you all for participating. And we'll get back to your breakfast, Mariella.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Of course, Anton, Craig, the whiskey company, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you, and thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed the whiskeys. You have a favorite right now, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully not in that too distant future, I'll come to Australia and see you in person for a dram face to face as well. Keep safe, keep healthy.
Just one thing, Mariella.
Oh yeah, sure.
We run a little whiskey club in down here in Margaret River, Western Australia. Would you be able to do an online tasting if we all organise some bottles and sort of like related and caught up?
Sure.
For an hour or so.
Yeah, as long as we keep Craig and Anton informed of what is happening, absolutely. We can talk about it over email, and we can see what bottles you have. But if you already have the bottles, that's great. I can tune in whenever you want and talk to you about.
We'll provide some bottles. We sort of
and I normally just keep my distributors informed just so that they know what is happening, in their own market, so they know. But yeah, absolutely no problem. As long as we keep it at 7 p.m. Australia again, so that I have time to wake up and be ready for it.
Mark, if you would, you can email us either inquiries or anton@thewhiskeycompany.com.au, and we can talk about that during the week.
Okay, well, it'll be next year. I mean,
of course, but not a problem.
Man. Come on.
But no, good question. Well, with that, I will bring it gone past the 8:30 mark, so I will not bother anyone more for their time. But we hope you enjoy some more whiskeys tonight. Enjoy yourself, breakfast for you, and to see you at another event somewhere in the future. Stay safe, everybody, and thank you all very much.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.